In December 2006, the most feared man in Iraq was found hiding in a hole, pulled out like a rat, and executed by hanging. But that's just one of many shocking ends that awaited history's most brutal tyrants. Today, we're revealing the final moments of dictators who ruled through terror, only to discover that power couldn't save them from their ultimate fate.
Adolf Hitler spent his final days in a concrete bunker 30 feet beneath Berlin as Soviet artillery pounded the city above. The man who'd commanded millions now cowered underground with Eva Braun, his longtime companion whom he'd married just hours before their deaths. As the Red Army closed in, Hitler knew there was no escape.
On April 30th, 1945, Hitler said his final goodbyes to his staff. He retreated to his private quarters, placed a Walther pistol in his mouth, and pulled the trigger while simultaneously biting into a cyanide capsule. Eva Braun died beside him from cyanide poisoning. Their bodies were carried outside, doused in gasoline, and set ablaze in a bomb crater.
Benito Mussolini, Hitler's fascist ally, met an even more humiliating end. After ruling Italy with an iron fist for over 2 decades, Il Duce fled north as Allied forces liberated the country in April 1945. He disguised himself in a German military coat and helmet, desperately trying to escape to Switzerland with his mistress, Clara Petacci.
Italian partisans stopped the convoy and recognized Mussolini despite his disguise. On April 28, 1945, they executed both him and Petacci by firing squad near Lake Como, but the humiliation didn't end there. Their bodies were transported to Milan and hung upside down from the roof of a gas station in the Piazzale Loreto, where crowds gathered to spit on and mutilate the corpses.
Joseph Stalin, the Soviet dictator responsible for millions of deaths, died under mysterious circumstances. On March 1, 1953, guards found him lying on the floor of his bedroom at his Kuntsevo dacha, unable to speak. He'd suffered a massive stroke, possibly brought on by years of paranoia, stress, and heavy drinking.
But here's the chilling part. His guards were terrified to enter his room for hours because anyone who disturbed Stalin without permission could be executed. By the time doctors finally arrived, it was too late. Stalin lingered for 4 agonizing days, and many historians believe his own inner circle may have poisoned him to prevent another purge they feared was coming.
Mao Zedong, whose policies caused the deaths of an estimated 45 million people during the Great Leap Forward, died from complications of Parkinson's disease and heart failure. Unlike many dictators, he died in his bed at age 82 in September 1976. But his final years were marked by increasing paranoia and isolation as his health deteriorated.
Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge leader who orchestrated the Cambodian genocide killing nearly 2 million people, died in a jungle hideout in 1998. After being overthrown in 1979, he spent 2 decades living in remote camps along the Thai-Cambodian border. His final hours remain disputed. Officially, he died of heart failure, but many believe he was poisoned or committed suicide.
Nicolae Ceaușescu ruled Romania with absolute brutality for 24 years, but his end came swiftly. On Christmas Day 1989, following a hasty trial that lasted just 2 hours, he and his wife Elena were executed by firing squad. They were tied to chairs in a courtyard, and soldiers opened fire before the couple could even comprehend their sentence.
The execution was captured on video, showing the dictator's final moments of defiant confusion. Ceaușescu had been so isolated in his palace that he genuinely couldn't believe his own people had turned against him. Just days before, he'd been living in opulent luxury while Romanians starved. The revolution happened so fast that he died still wearing his expensive winter coat.
Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years with an iron fist and bizarre eccentricities. When the Arab Spring reached Libya in 2011, rebel forces hunted him down to his hometown of Sirte. On October 20th, NATO airstrikes hit his convoy, and he took refuge in a drainage pipe. Rebel fighters found him hiding there, bloody and begging for mercy.
The footage of Gaddafi's capture is horrifying. He was dragged from the pipe, beaten and tortured by the angry mob. Someone shot him multiple times and he died on the hood of a pickup truck. His final words, captured on cell phone video, were, "What did I do to you?" The man who had ordered countless executions couldn't understand why violence had returned to him.
Saddam Hussein, the brutal dictator of Iraq, was found hiding in a spider hole near his hometown of Tikrit in December 2003. The man who'd lived in dozens of palaces was discovered underground with just $750,000 in cash, a pistol, and some Mars bars. He looked disheveled with a long, scraggly beard, a far cry from his strongman image.
Hussein was executed by hanging on December 30th, 2006, during the Islamic festival of Eid al-Adha. The execution was botched. Guards taunted him, and someone recorded it on a cell phone. The video leaked online, showing Hussein maintaining composure even as the noose was placed around his neck. His final words were recitations from the Quran before the trap door opened.
Idi Amin, Uganda's butcher of Africa who killed up to 500,000 people, escaped justice entirely. After being overthrown in 1979, he fled to Libya and eventually settled in Saudi Arabia, where he lived comfortably in exile. He died peacefully in his sleep in 2003 at age 78, having never faced trial for his atrocities.
The fact that Amin died of natural causes while living in luxury infuriated his victims' families. He spent his final years eating lavish meals, shopping at expensive markets, and living off Saudi hospitality. Sometimes justice doesn't catch up with monsters. Amin's peaceful death remains one of history's most frustrating injustices.
Francisco Franco, Spain's fascist dictator, also died peacefully, but not quickly. In October 1975, the 82-year-old dictator suffered a series of heart attacks. Doctors kept him alive for weeks through extraordinary medical intervention, performing multiple surgeries. He endured 3 operations in his final month, clinging to power literally until his last breath.
Franco finally died on November 20th, 1975, and Spain erupted in celebration. Thousands took to the streets, not to mourn, but to rejoice that the dictatorship had finally ended. The man who'd ruled Spain for 36 years through fear and oppression was gone, and democracy could finally return. His death marked the beginning of Spain's transition to modern democracy.
Kim Jong-il, North Korea's dear leader, died of a heart attack on a train in December 2011. According to state media, his death caused natural disasters, including a mysterious glow over sacred Mount Paktu and ice cracking with such force it sounded like the sky was falling. Of course, none of this actually happened. It was typical North Korean propaganda.
What's fascinating is how North Korea choreographed the mourning. State television showed citizens wailing in the streets, beating the ground in grief. But experts noted many were crying without tears. They were terrified not to appear sufficiently devastated. Kim Jong-il's death transferred power to his son Kim Jong-un, continuing the world's only communist dynasty.
Fidel Castro, Cuba's revolutionary leader turned autocrat, survived over 600 assassination attempts, according to Cuban intelligence. The CIA tried everything: exploding cigars, poisoned wetsuits, even a bizarre plan involving a contaminated seashell. But Castro died of natural causes at age 90 in November 2016, outlasting 10 U.S. presidents who tried to remove him.
Castro's death was kept secret for 2 days before being announced. Despite decades of authoritarian rule, his death sparked genuine grief among many Cubans who remembered him as a revolutionary hero. Others celebrated privately, hoping for change. His ashes were transported across Cuba in a reverse journey of his original revolutionary march to Havana.
Robert Mugabe ruled Zimbabwe for 37 years, transforming the country from a prosperous nation into an economic disaster. After being forced to resign in 2017, he died in a Singapore hospital in September 2019 at age 95. Unlike many dictators, Mugabe wasn't killed by revolution or execution. He was simply removed from power and faded away.
Mugabe spent his final years bitter and isolated, giving occasional rambling interviews. The man who'd once been hailed as a liberation hero had destroyed his country's economy and stolen from his own people. He died in exile, receiving expensive medical treatment abroad, while Zimbabwean hospitals lacked basic supplies. Even in death, the irony was inescapable.
Augusto Pinochet, Chile's military dictator, died on International Human Rights Day in December 2006, a date that felt almost like cosmic justice. He'd escaped prosecution for his crimes through claims of poor health, but investigations revealed he'd hidden millions of dollars in secret bank accounts. He died at age 91 after a heart attack, having avoided true accountability.
Unlike other dictators, Pinochet wasn't given a state funeral. Thousands of supporters and opponents clashed in the streets, some mourning him as a hero who saved Chile from communism, others celebrating the death of a torturer and murderer. His body was cremated to prevent his grave from becoming either a shrine or a target for vandalism.
Slobodan Milosevic, the Butcher of the Balkans, died in his cell at the Hague Tribunal in March 2006. He was on trial for genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes for his role in the Yugoslav wars that killed over 100,000 people. Just before his trial concluded, he was found dead from a heart attack. Some claim it was suicide. Others suspect foul play.
Milosevic had been conducting his own defense and frequently disrupted proceedings with outbursts. His death meant he never received a verdict, which frustrated his victims who'd waited years for justice. He'd spent 5 years in custody, and just as accountability seemed certain, it slipped away. Death had granted him one final escape from judgment.
Mengistu Haile Mariam, Ethiopia's communist dictator known for the Red Terror, is still alive today. After being overthrown in 1991, he fled to Zimbabwe, where Robert Mugabe granted him asylum. Multiple requests for his extradition have been denied. Now in his 80s, he lives comfortably in Harare, having never faced justice for killing hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians.
What these deaths reveal is a harsh truth. Dictators rarely face the justice they deserve. Some die peacefully in exile, some are executed by angry mobs, and others cling to power until their final breath. But whether they die in luxury or violence, they all share one commonality. They destroyed countless lives for power, and in the end, power couldn't save them from mortality.
The families of dictators rarely escape unscathed either. Mussolini's granddaughter became a politician defending his legacy. Stalin's daughter defected to America, trying to escape her father's shadow. Ceaușescu's children faced prison time. The sins of the fathers cast long shadows, and bloodlines connected to tyranny carry burdens across generations that no amount of distance can erase.
Perhaps most chilling is how many dictators never showed remorse. Even facing death, most believed they were heroes, victims of conspiracies, or martyrs for their cause. This self-delusion persisted to their last moments. Ceaușescu singing the Internationale, Gaddafi asking, "What did I do to you?" Their inability to recognize their own monstrosity remained their most defining characteristic until the very end.
The modern world has changed how dictators might meet their end. International criminal courts, global surveillance, and instant communication make it harder to simply disappear into comfortable exile. Yet still they emerge, believing they'll be the exception, that they'll maintain power forever. History suggests otherwise. Every throne eventually becomes a grave marker, whether literal or metaphorical.
Some argue that violent ends for dictators prevent closure and create martyrs.
Others believe only such justice satisfies the demands of their victims. The truth lies somewhere between. No death, peaceful or violent, can undo the millions of lives destroyed, the families shattered, the generations traumatized. Yet humanity's need for justice, even imperfect justice, remains a powerful force in history.
What separates a military leader from a dictator, a revolutionary from a tyrant? Often it's simply who writes the history books. Some figures celebrated as liberators committed acts as brutal as any dictator. The line between hero and villain shifts with perspective. But one truth remains constant: those who rule through fear and violence ultimately become prisoners of the very systems they created.
The weapons that killed these dictators varied wildly, from firing squads to fighter jets, from poison to peasant machetes. But perhaps the most powerful weapon against dictatorship isn't military at all. It's the collective memory of people who refuse to forget. Monuments fall, statues topple, but the stories of those who suffered under tyranny become the true historical record.
Today, several aging dictators still cling to power, watching history and wondering how their own stories will end. They've learned from their predecessors: tighter security, careful succession planning, offshore bank accounts. But history has a lesson they can't escape. No amount of preparation has ever let a dictator truly choose their ending. The people they rule, in one way or another, always have the final say.
These stories aren't just about death. They're about the fundamental truth that absolute power is a temporary condition. From the Roman Caesars to modern autocrats, the pattern repeats endlessly. Power concentrates, corrupts, and ultimately collapses. The manner of collapse varies, but the collapse itself is inevitable. This is perhaps the only comfort history offers to those living under tyranny today.
If this journey through history's darkest exits fascinated you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. Remember, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But those who do learn can ensure that the age of dictators becomes nothing more than a cautionary tale for future generations. The power to prevent the next tyrant